Hi everyone, it's Gerald with you again, Grand Seiko guy, and today we're going to be looking at one of the most collectible of the vintage Grand Seiko references. This is the 6145 8030, and this was a bit of an underground piece for a while until last year in 2018. Sorry, 2 years ago now, in 2018, when there was a set of 3 limited edition references released for the US only, which used a very similar dial finish to what we see on this vintage piece. We used to refer to this dial as a starlight dial because of the way that it sort of reacts to different light and the way that it reflects the light. But in actual fact, when the US limited editions came out, they referred to the dial as being inspired by a Japanese painting technique called Kira-zuri. So now people refer to this style finish as a Kira-zuri, get my vowels in the right order, Kira-zuri finish, and it really is quite spectacular. So when those US limited editions came out towards the end of 2018, there was a big rush on these. Everybody suddenly wanted to get hold of this particular reference because obviously that was the inspiration for the modern pieces. But they are very rare. This reference actually was first published in the Volume 2 supplement of the 1969 Seiko catalogue at a price of 160,000 yen, and it only stayed in the catalogues until for 1 year, until 1970 Volume 2. So it's a fairly high-priced reference, 160,000. Remember, that's more expensive than any of the steel-cased VFAs, and of course the reason for that is that this watch has a solid 18-karat gold case. The case, as we'll look at in detail, has a fantastic hammered finish, and it really is quite spectacular. So let's just see. If you see as I move this around in the light, you can see how the dial changes appearance quite dramatically, and this is actually also very clear to see in the studio video that I shot. So let me just run that video now, and as you can see, as the watch sort of rotates in the view, you can just really get a very good understanding as to just how spectacular this dial is, and how amazing it is in terms of how it reacts to the different angles of light. The other thing obviously that you'll notice in the video is the fantastic hand-hammered case. We know these are hand-hammered, hand-finished, because when you look at different examples of these this particular reference, you can see that the cases are actually different in terms of where they're hammered. So back to this live shot now. As we can see, it's a 6145 movement, so it just has the date complication, and obviously there's a quick set for the date. And I think really that video, that studio video, really probably showed off the case better than you're going to see in this sort of natural light video. But let's just highlight a few things about the watch that I need to make sure you're aware of. I think this case has been polished a little bit. The hand hammering, the texture on the case, I don't think is quite as prominent as the previous one that we had, which actually sold privately before even listing it. But it is still a very attractive and spectacular piece. There is one negative thing about this case that you can't see from this side, but when I flip it over the side here, straight away we can see that on the underside of the lug at the top has had a pretty significant ding at some point. Dread to think what happened to put that in the watch. But the nice thing about it is because it's on the underside, you tend not to see it. Obviously, if this is on your wrist, then you're not going to see that flaw on that side. So let's just flip it over. As with all of the solid gold cased Grand Seikos, vintage Grand Seikos, of course, because it's solid gold, there's no need for a gold medallion. So instead of a gold medallion, we just have the engraving on the actual case back of Seiko and the GS, and then the Sewer logo underneath. And we can see from the date, the first 2 digits of the serial number 98, that this watch was manufactured in August of 1969. So there we have it. The other thing, sorry, just to point out, which is actually more visible, more clear in the studio lighting, and it's interesting to actually compare the two, the watch in the two different lights, is that you can barely see on here, but the crystal is actually quite marked and quite scratched. As I say, it's very evident in the studio lighting, not so evident if it's in normal light and on your wrist. You probably wouldn't really notice those scratches that much. So that's really just the only two negative points: the scratch on the crystal and this rather sad ding on the case there. So we did offer this watch to a couple of people privately who have been on the wait list. We had a wait list of about I think it was 4 people for this, but none of them have actually taken us up on this one. So this is now going to be available generally. We'll put the listing on the site. The link to that listing will be below the video, directly below the video here. Also on the site, you'll get a chance to have a good look at as we say, the beauty shot, so you can see the watch in high resolution, and again, just really spectacular dial. So there you go. So for people who've been looking out for one of these, this is a very rare opportunity to get one. If you are interested in it, don't hang about, because these don't stay in stock for very long. And on average, as I say, this is the third that we've had. I had one from my original collection from a few years ago, and then we had a second one which sold, that one sold very soon after the launch of the site. And then we had a second one come in earlier this year, which went straight into a private collection. And this is just the third. And I think actually this is just the third to come onto the market in that time. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back again in a few days with another listing.